Hey YouTube, my name is Nick. I haven't made any chess videos on this channel lately, or actually at all. This is my first chess video, but I recently had a game that I played in a tournament I was just in, and I was the black pieces, as you can see. And this game was just really crazy, and I want to share it with the world. So without further ado, the game starts out e4, and I play c6, and this is a Caro-Kann defense. He plays d4, I play d5, and he plays knight c3. This is the mainline Caro-Kann, for anyone that knows a little bit. I play d takes e4, he plays knight takes e4, and I play bishop f5 to attack this knight. His knight comes back to g3, attacking my bishop. So I bring the bishop back to g6. And here we still have a mainline Caro-Kann. And this is actually the classical variation. And then he plays h4, and I play h6. Reason being, I don't want to let him get this pawn to h5 and hit my bishop without having h6 played, because then my bishop's going to have to go to a square where it can be captured by either this knight or this pawn. So I need to create a square for my bishop to go to, so that's the point of h6. And yeah, so that's the point of h6. Here he goes knight f3, just developing the other knight. This is still the classical variation, but some books call this the two knights attack because of these two knights working together here. This is still, you know, within my prep. I play e6 here. This is just a really solid move to go for in the Caro-Kann. And it gives me a pretty solid pawn structure, and it opens up my dark square bishop to come into the game. So that's pretty much the point of e6. However, here I should have played what I played on the next move. I should have played knight d7 here, because now this knight comes into e5. Now this looks like it only has one purpose, which is to attack this bishop, but it actually has a much different goal, one that I wasn't expecting. But I pulled the bishop back to h7 because I don't want to let it get captured. A knight for a bishop is generally not a good trade, and in this case I would have to recapture with my f-pawn, and it would damage my pawn structure in front of where I want to castle my king. So it really wasn't an option to let this bishop get captured. However, if I had knight d7 played instead of e6, then when this knight came to e5, I could have captured it with the knight. But anyways, his knight gets to e5, I play bishop h7, and now he plays bishop c4, which looks like a pretty standard development move. But again, the point of this move is to set up a trap that I didn't see coming. And I consider myself, you know, a pretty decent intermediate player. I didn't know about this trick, and chess.com actually says that the move coming up in a couple turns is a brilliant move. And if you're someone that plays on chess.com very much, you know how hard it is to get a brilliant move. So bishop c4, it looks like a just standard development move, but it actually has an edge to it. So now I play knight d7, and he plays queen e2. So now the alarm bells should have been ringing, because queen e2 is a bit of a strange move. Usually when you see it, there's some kind of trick, because this is not a square the queen usually goes to. However, I missed this trick, and see if you can see the trick here, because this is really the point in the game where I needed to just think instead of blitzing out a move. But I played knight g f6, and believe it or not, this very simple move that, you know, is probably a move that a lot of players watching this might think to play, actually is a blunder. And the reason is because of the brilliant move, knight takes f7. Now, when you look at this, the more crazy this move becomes. First of all, the first thing you probably notice is that the knight is forking my rook and my queen at the same time. So I move one and the other one falls. So then you might think, well, why don't you just take the knight? In fact, that might have been the first thing you thought. Well, you actually cannot take this knight, because if you capture it, queen takes e6 is actually checkmate. After a few more moves, well, it leads to checkmate. If you play, for instance, we'll show it, king takes f7, queen takes e6 check. The only move is king here. And then you have queen here, and that's checkmate. There's no squares the king can go to because the knight's cutting off and queen are cutting off this square. They're cutting off this square. You can't come back because of the bishop. So that leads to checkmate if you take the knight. So that isn't an option. So naturally, in this position, I'm starting to freak out a little bit. I know this position is completely losing, and I know, you know, that my opponent is already, you know, cooking up the, you know, the final blows to this game, and we're only at this point 11. This is move 11. So here I am, the final game of the tournament. You know, I didn't have a very good start to this tournament. I lost the first 2 rounds. I drew the 3rd round. And here I am, not really wanting to lose this game, but I'm looking and there's no good moves. But believe it or not, I did actually come back and win this game. Now, I shouldn't have, but surprisingly, my opponent didn't play that poorly. I play queen a5 check. This looks to me like pretty much the only good move, and the engine says this is the best move. I was going to resign here, honestly, but then I was like, I'm just going to play a few more moves and see what happens. So I play queen a5 check, and he plays bishop d2. It blocks the check and attacks my queen. So I play bishop b4, because now I have a battery on his king. This is an attack you sort of have to respond to. But he plays queen takes e6 check. Now this looks like it's going to lead to checkmate very soon, but believe it or not, my king is actually pretty safe here on f8. And here's where the game starts to turn in my favor because of what he plays on the next move. He plays c3. Now, this looks like, you know, a pretty sensible move. You want to block this battery from getting in. You're attacking my bishop. My king is stuck, you know. I did say he's actually pretty safe, but believe it or not, there is actually one good move here for black. And I find it instantly because, of course, I'm looking for any hope in this position, and I do find this move quite quickly. Rook E8, the only good move. Now, why is this a good move? It's a good move because he hasn't castled yet. And you'll notice his queen is in line with his king on the E file, which means he can't move this queen out of the way because it would be moving into check, which is an illegal move in chess. So his queen is going to be captured. Now, he realizes this all of a sudden after Rook E8, I mean, white is still winning by a significant margin, but it's already starting to turn a little bit. And so he plays c takes b4. So he takes my bishop. Naturally, I take his queen with check, and he takes my rook to get out of check. Now, believe it or not, in this position, we have already saved quite a lot of the disadvantage that we were in just 5 moves ago. I've lost more material than he's lost total, but now white is only up 1 pawn. So quite the turn of events. I'm no longer, thinking about resigning. I'm thinking about playing this game out. So obviously my queen is under attack here, and I choose, obviously to save her because that's sort of my win condition right now. He's got all of these pieces, all of these pawns. I have fewer pieces than he does, but what I do have is a queen. So I play queen b6. Now he plays knight takes h8, because remember of that fork that he had set up, that knight was going to fall. Unfortunately, there was no way to save him. But after he plays knight takes h8, I play queen takes d4. And now he's up a full rook. But I have a queen, and he has minor pieces, rooks that aren't in the game, and he hasn't castled yet. My king is actually probably safer than his king. So all that into account, he plays the move bishop c3. Sorry, I had to look. This attacks my queen, and so I have to move her. I choose to move her to d6, attacking his other bishop. He pulls this bishop back to b3, and I go queen e7 check. Now, obviously, I couldn't have checked him on e6 or e5 because his bishops are controlling these squares, but e7 isn't controlled by any of his pieces, and so I check him there, and he blocks with the knight d2. Now, I quickly realize that I've created a pin, and actually this was the point of playing queen e7 check. I can now go bishop d3, and his knight is stuck to his king. He chooses to protect his knight with an additional layer of defense with bishop d1. And then I go king g8. Very important that I get this move off. You might notice instead of bishop d1 here, he had a move that pretty much won the game on the spot. Or actually, no, it didn't work here. It didn't work here because my bishop can come back and take this knight. But I go king g8 so that this isn't a threat. This little fork, knight fork between my king and queen, because obviously I need to keep my queen on the board. She's my main win condition. Now here he does a move that I find really questionable. By the way, this bishop's still here. He goes for kingside castling. And this move, this knight's still here when he castled, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I could have captured this knight with my king, but what I did is I took the knight there, he takes my bishop back, and I take this bishop with my queen. And now, all of a sudden, with what's transpired, the game is officially equalized. From the disaster on the board on move 11, here we are on move 23, and the game is equal. White has 2 pawns, but I have a queen, and he's got minor pieces and rooks that aren't in the game yet. And this knight is under attack by my king. So the first thing he does is he plays Rook Fe1 to force my queen to move. And I go Queen D3 here. So I'm just sort of sidestepping his rook, and I'm eyeballing this G6 square so his knight can't get out. He plays bishop takes F6, and I recapture with my knight. Reason being, I want to keep this square, this checking square, protected. And so if I had recapture with the G-pawn, that just wouldn't have been good. It would have opened up my king, and it would have allowed him to place a rook in here with check, so I didn't want to allow that. So I recapture with the knight. Now he goes Rook A D1, just attacking my queen again. And I go... Where did I go? Hold on. I go Queen C4, sidestepping again, and I'm attacking both of these pawns at the same time. But I did relinquish control of the G6 square, which pushes the advantage back in White's favor because he's able to get this knight out. It's no longer trapped. I perhaps overlooked, letting his knight get out, but it's still not, a massive advantage. He brings that knight out. I take this pawn on B4. So now I'm still attacking 2 pawns at the same time, but this one's now defended. So now I'm really just attacking that one. And he goes Rook E2. Now this is a move I really don't understand. I think he's just wanting to double up on the E file, but this move is way too passive here, and it pushes the advantage back in my favor. So now I go Queen G4, and this move was actually a blunder. It pushes the favor back in his favor. But the reason I played it, and perhaps this move looks appealing to those watching, I've got a nice attack on these rooks and on this knight at the same time, so it's a fork, and that's why I played it. Apparently he had a good move there. I'm not sure what it was. And maybe I'll look at that later. I might respond to you in the comments what he had that was good there, but actually we can just go back. He had Rook D8 check. Okay. So yeah, this move would have been annoying, but he didn't play that, and every other move is actually losing for him. He plays Knight E7 check. This allows my king to get to H7 where he's really safe. So this move puts the advantage back in my favor again. So like I said, this was just a crazy game. Now he finishes his idea. He doubles up on the file, on the E file, and now this rook is defended. So I take H4 now. Queen takes H4, and he goes F3. Now this is another move I really don't see the point of. I guess it creates an escape square for his king, but it was a really weak passive move, and the engine absolutely hates this move. I go Knight H5 here with ideas of trying to get in like here with checkmate. In a perfect world, he'll just let me do that, but he goes Rook E4, attacking my queen, and I played Queen F6 here to save my queen, but try to keep her, in a position where she can still attack. He now goes Rook E5, going after my knight now. I play Knight F4, And I did see this move, the move he played next, but I wasn't too afraid of it. He plays Rook F5, supported by his knight. So it looks like he's forking both of these pieces. Meanwhile, I can't take this knight because it's supported by his rook. So this looks like a really good move for him. But first I have Queen H4, keeping my knight defended and saving my queen simultaneously. And then he plays Rook E4. The other Rook to E4. I go with Knight H3 check, which was the only good move. I was going to lose this knight anyways, but this way I really opened up his king. So he plays G takes H3. It was a sacrifice, so I was expecting him to play this. Now I don't take this pawn yet. What I do is I play Queen G3 check. Reason being, if he goes to either of these two squares, which are his only options, I can then take this pawn with check, which looks like a fork, by the way. So I'll just show you. He goes Queen F1, or he goes King F1, and I go Queen takes H3 check. This looks like a fork, but you have to remember that this is still defended by his knight, so I can't take this rook. Although I really wish I could. So I go Queen takes H3 check. He goes King F2. And now I go Queen H2 check, eyeballing the B2 pawn when he moves away. He goes King E3, and I continue with my plan, and I take on B2. Queen takes B2. Now he goes Rook G4, which I guess he's just kind of eyeballing my king, trying to get in there with an attack. But this is a critical mistake, because now I can go Queen A3 check, and I'm forking this knight down here. So he goes King F4, I take the knight, and now I'm completely winning. This is actually a pretty, classic endgame. It's a queen versus two rooks, but I also have way more pawns than he has. It's completely winning for black. And now I'm just sort of cleaning up shop. He goes Rook E5, last-ditch effort to attack my king or my queen. I go Queen F6 check. He goes King E4. I go Queen F7. Because I want to come in here. I'm eyeballing this pawn back here on A2, and I want to stay where there's still a lot of checks available to me. Just sort of a safe move. He goes Rook F4, and I go Queen G6 check, because that's opened up to me. He goes King D4. Then I go Queen G1 check, coming at him from the other side of the board. He goes King E4. And now I go C5, which, might look strange, but my idea is I want to take this pawn with check. So what happens now is he goes King D5. He doesn't take with the rook, which is probably a good idea if he did take with the rook. Well, if he did take with the rook, then I can take with the queen. That was what it was. So he plays King D5. I go Queen D1 check. He goes King takes C5. I go Queen C1 check. Now this looks like I'm winning the rook, but actually he can block like this. So now I go B6 check. He goes King D5. And now I go Queen D2 check. He goes Rook D4, blocking with the rook. Now I'm able to take with check. Queen takes A2 check. He goes King E4. Hold on, E4. Yeah, E4. And then I go A5, just starting to push my pass pawns. And here's where he makes the game-ending mistake. He goes Rook E7. This allows Queen E2 check, winning the rook when his king moves. And in this position, White resigned, and I got my first win of that tournament, the only win of that tournament. And I hope that y'all, appreciate this game as much as I did. That knight takes F7 move was so nasty. It was literally a brilliant move according to chess.com. But I was able to come back with the black pieces against extraordinary odds using the power of my queen. And so I really wanted to show this game to the world. And yeah, that's about it.